Today we have a lovely return guest, Giovanna Franklin, who will be sharing with us her love of the homeopathic remedies made from various gemstones and how we can use these remedies in homeopathic practice. Giovanna has also written a book called Gifts from the Earth, which shares valuable information on these gemstone remedies. The book is hot off the press as it was only launched a few weeks ago, so be sure to get a copy through Balboa Press or on Amazon. If you're a fan of gemstones like me, you are going to love this episode. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, we have the lovely Giovanna Franklin back on the podcast because there is still lots more that we need to chat about. Welcome, Giovanna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Well, I won't ask you how you got into homeopathy. People are going to have to scroll back a few extra episodes ago. I think we said episode 73 you were on. So they'll have to scroll back and find out how you introduced to homeopathy, because today it's all about gems and you have just released a book on gemstones. So let's talk about all things gems. What made you decide to write this book and what is it called and where can people get it?
Okay, so the short answers first. The book is called Gifts from the Earth, Gemstone Remedies in Homeopathy, and it's available on Amazon now. It's just being released on Amazon, so it's much easier for everybody to get it. And yeah, how I got into gemstone remedies. First of all, I would like to say that I've always been really into jewelry and crystals and gemstones, and that's from childhood. And that's because my mother was, as I always say, the poorer version of Elizabeth Taylor. I'm just aging myself, but everybody knows Elizabeth Taylor was obsessed with jewelry, and my mom was too. Obviously, we could not afford that kind of stuff, but she did okay. And so since I was little, I was literally dragged to auctions and the jewelry quarters of the city, and we used to spend hours and hours going through, looking at this and that. And so passively, it was like passive smoking. I absorbed all the information, even though at the time, of course, it's not something that I would, necessarily subject a child to. It's boring. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but I didn't have any choice at the time. But that kind of information stayed with me. And then growing up, of course, I do like my bling. I really, really like.
Girl, gotta have bling.
I like my shiny stuff. I cannot lie. And when I started studying homeopathy, I went to the clinic, for the clinical observation, and I met other students, and I realized that I thought I was a little bit fish out of water. Everybody else was talking about, I'd been to safaris in Africa and loved the outdoors and gardening, and was really into nature and animals. And I'm really none of these things. And so for a while, I was even thinking, I was questioning myself. I'm not really that good with nature. I don't even watch documentaries about nature. I'm not interested. So am I really cut out for this? And then I thought, hang on a minute. Homeopathy is not just plants and animals. It's minerals as well. I'm not doing a herbology qualification. I'm going to be a homeopath, so maybe there's something for me that fits. But gemstones are not typically taught in the curriculum, so that was not in the curriculum at my school. And so I just let it go. And then when I was in supervision, I had a case. I took the case of my parish priest, which is in my book, and that was extraordinary because it was very intuitive. It was the first time that I didn't repertorize sometimes the patient gives you the remedy.
Hands on a platter.
They just tell you. And this lady was quite unique. And basically she noticed I was wearing an amethyst pendant. And she said, "Oh, I love amethyst. When I pray, I often hold an amethyst, natural amethyst in my hand, and it calms me down, it helps me, blah, blah, blah." And this lady was really I was finding it hard to pinpoint, to really have a clear picture of her case, because from my perspective, she was like, she had all the sensitivities of a plant. She had plenty of chemical sensitivities and all sorts of, she was very sensitive to light, and, she had SAD, the seasonal affective disorder. So that was the plant. But then she spoke like a mineral, she had the language of minerals. She was talking about structure and here's my rock. And, her body language was very mineral. And so I was confused. And then, but pure serendipity, I was browsing on YouTube and I found this short video by homeopath Anne Vervaker. She's a Belgian homeopath. And she said, how to tell if your patient needs a gemstone remedy is the first clue is that you will see that they are like a cross between two kingdoms. So like a plant and a mineral. And I was like, that's it. And, I can't find that video anymore.
Aww.
I was looking because I wanted to put a reference, the link of that video in my book, in the bibliography, and I couldn't find it. I don't know if it's been removed or what happened to it. And I'm like, did I dream about it? I mean, it was definitely there.
You'll have to ask Anna. She's really good with email. If you email her, she was on the podcast as well. Flick her an email and ask.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't think I could do that, because she's like, wonderful fuck. Oh.
She's so lovely.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a great idea. We'll do that, because that was a very, very good, that got me started, because I went back and I said, okay, so she mentioned amethyst. I think I'm going to give her amethyst. And I didn't even know if it was a thing, so I had to go and look. And that's how I got to Peter Tominello's book, the 12 Jewels. And so I bought his book. But then I went back to my supervisor and I said, listen, I'm really sorry. I felt really terrible. I didn't do any repertorizing for this case because I think she needs amethyst. My supervisor didn't have any literature on gemstone remedies either. She didn't really know much about these remedies, but she said, you know what, just go for it and see what happens. That's what you do. And the case went really, really well. And it was extraordinary. I mean, she went through some aggravation, some transformation, literal, physical and spiritual transformation. And transformation is one of the big themes of gemstone remedies. And so it was a very, very eye-opening case. And from then on, I thought, wow, I found my affinity. I really resonate with gems. And I thought, well, maybe all those hours I spent as a child, that was not so useless. After all, I can actually put it into this work because, of course, in homeopathy, you always go back to the source, whatever the remedy is. And I do know my sources. And I do resonate with them. I don't know. It's like they speak. They're alive. That's what I'm saying. To me, rocks in general, they don't even have to be shiny. But
shiny is
mountains. Yes, that's definitely. But even rocks, even mountains, even I see pictures of those red rocks in Arizona, and I've never been there, and I really, really want to go there because those rocks, they just speak to me. I don't know, they're just so attractive. I like rocks. I don't know what to say.
You are allowed to like rocks, Giovanna. That is really, really lovely. As you're saying this, I actually we now sell crystals in my clinic as well, and we've got this lovely wholesaler here in Perth. So I went there last week to buy some things. I am not going to tell you how much I spent because it was way too much, but it was just being in this shop with all these gemstones around you. I don't know, you could just feel the energy of it. It was just so amazing, and I just want to touch them all. And I think if there was a gemstone bath or something, you can somehow surround yourself with all these gemstones. I would like to do that. But I guess the next best thing is to take a homeopathic remedy and just immerse your whole vital force in the gemstone. So
that's right. Because go ahead.
No, I was going to say, tell us a little bit about what gemstones are in your book.
So I picked the stones that I knew best, that I used on, that I prescribed to patients, or in some cases that I decided to prove a few years ago, just out of curiosity. And I wrote down all the effects they had on me. And funnily enough, the effects were on the psychological level, not even psychological, on the subliminal level, because I had really, really wild dreams from the remedies, which were unequivocally linked to the remedies. And so I had all that written down, and I included that in the book. So I had 12 gemstones. Some of them are precious stones, some of them are semi-precious stone, and I explained the difference between the two. So precious stones are, the easiest way to recognize them is by the price, because they are the most expensive ones, and they're expensive because they're graded by how hard they are, the hardness, how rare they are, and how shiny they are, how good they are at refracting the light. And so, obviously diamonds are precious stones, rubies, sapphires, emeralds. Other stones that are not so rare, for example, rose quartz is relatively common, so it's relatively affordable, but it's breakable, it's more breakable. All the quartz family, they are hard, they are cold, but they're brittle, they're very fragile. And they're not that hard to find. You don't need to dig as far down into the ground to find them. So for that reason, they're considered less precious, and so they're called semi-precious.
I don't know. I love rose quartz and amethyst, so I consider them precious. They're precious to me.
Oh, yeah.
I love them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. They are absolutely, and clear quartz is
it's beautiful. It's so interesting because my bestie is a geologist, and my son asked me the other day, how are the crystals made? I'm like, I don't know. Send Joanna a voice message. She'll reply. And then she sent this voice message back explaining to my son how these are made. And I hope I don't butcher this, but she was saying how when a volcano erupts and then somehow there's a bubble that gets caught in there. And then, everything hardens. And then within this bubble, then the quartz is created inside of that. And then she was saying that amethyst is actually just a purple quartz. I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't really think about it that way. But the way that she explained it, I'm like, oh, yeah. So you have this, geode form, this bubble inside. And Joanna, if you're listening, I'm sorry if I've completely butchered that. You explained it much more.
No, but that's absolutely right. The quartzes, that's how they are formed. That's right. And particularly amethyst is considered volcanic, and partly because of the color, and the color of the different quartzes is given by a little metal that is mixed in. So it can be manganese.
And silica as well, I think. Is it silica as well?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the main component of all the quartzes is silicon dioxide.
Okay.
And so in homeopathy, comparatively, you can think about silica, just the remedy silica. So you have that, the miasm, the psychotic miasm, and those characteristics. That the main theme for me with silica is that it's hard, it's rigid, but it's very fragile. It's brittle. It's easy to cut. It's the flint. When they used to use flint in prehistoric times, because it was very hard. You could use it as a knife, you could use it as a spear, but it was very easy to work on because it was easily chippable. They just used a chip. And if you drop a crystal, it will break. The quartz crystal, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Yeah. And for our listeners, I've just suddenly popped into my mind, when you're hearing homeopaths talking about, crude substances, you always try to think, how would I relate this to a person in front of me? So the fact that, silica is hard, but also they're very brittle. So what would that look like in a person? So, when we're trying to match like with like. So when you're hearing Giovanna talking about these things, try to think about the type of person that you think might need this. But can you maybe tell us about some more of the gemstones that you've got in your book, and what sort of people would you prescribe them for? And if you're taking a case, what might alert you to the fact that you might need a gem remedy, apart from what you were saying, that there might be two different kingdoms that comes up, but what other reasons might you use a gem remedy for?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because what I see are people who have been through a lot of challenges in their lives, a lot of trauma, often dark situations, abuse, violence, domestic abuse or childhood trauma. And then they have come through all these challenges, and they have come through with a different perspective. I would say transformation is one of the key words. So people who have gone through all these challenges, and they may be broken perhaps in some way, damaged physically, which is the reason why they come to the homeopath in the first place. But at the same time, they have a different perspective. It's like they have been tempered. They have been fortified. Their soul, their spirit is different. And the thing that strikes me every time is how these people, despite everything they've been through, they have no bitterness. There is no blame in the way they talk. There is pure forgiveness. There is self-awareness. There is spiritual awareness. There is a very, very deep spiritual awareness. And it may be religious, it may not be religious, but there is this depth spiritually that you recognize that absolutely shines through. And it's different. It's different from any other. I would say they're special people. They are unique. I mean, everybody is unique, but these people, for some reason, they just stand out. That it's like their soul jumps out at me. I can almost see it. It's amazing. They all have different stories, but that's the key theme, and that's the key theme. One of the themes of gemstones, because when you think about it, particularly think about a diamond. It's a piece of carbon, and the untempered, a younger kind of sort of carbon is the graphite. It's a pencil. But when it goes through a long, millions of years long process of extreme heat inside the earth and pressure, real pressure, it's squeezed. It's like a distilled form of the original substance. And then you get the diamond. Wow. The crystallized form. And it's beautiful. But think about what that piece of rock had to go through to become a diamond. And even after that, you have to go dig it out. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money, and you have to dig it out, and then you have to polish it, and you have to clean it. It's covered in dirt. So that it goes through a lot of stuff before you can see what it is, and it's beautiful, and it's shiny and strong. But before you get there, wow, it takes a lot. So the transformation and the suffering, there is a lot of suffering, because that's the other thing I discovered. You look at crystals, everybody's like, oh, shiny, they're beautiful. And you think about positive stuff, and they're pretty, and they make you feel good, and look at that.
So I had to share that. A friend gave me this, but it's just so gorgeous. Nice chunk of quartz.
Really beautiful. But then when I was reading, I was reading Tuminello, I was reading other books, the darkness, that's what you don't associate diamonds with, the darkness. And
I guess they are deep in the earth where it's very dark. So
and also, where are they found? Think about diamonds. They are usually found in some really troubled places on the earth, Africa, India, South America. They're the places where there is a lot of trouble, a lot of violence. The process of extracting these stones, they talk about blood diamonds, for example, all the greed and the causes that generates violence, and they're used to buy weapons. And so there's a lot of kind of negative energy around them sometimes. And we don't realize that. And I didn't realize that. So that was, it made me get rid of the diamonds that I had from my mom. I actually auctioned them off. I couldn't. And it kind of explained to me why, whenever I was wearing my mother's diamonds, I didn't feel good.
Wow.
I don't know. I have felt other things from my mother. Absolutely. Yes. Fine. But diamonds, and I love diamonds. Used to be my favorite. And now I don't like them anymore. And I don't have almost any. So there's other other stones that resonate better with me. But that's explained to me because, there is a very, very dark aspect. But the flip side of that, because as usual, polarities, there's the darkness versus light. So the stone is born in darkness, in the bowels of the earth. It comes out and it sees the light, and not just sees the light, but it reflects the light. And it's beautiful. So you get to that journey and you get to help your patient going through that journey and recognize that. So that's beautiful.
Amazing. And Giovanna, do you know how the gemstone remedies are made?
Yes. So there's two ways. For example, the first gemstone that was proved was by Sankaran in the 70s. That was diamond adamas. And he did that by trituration. So he literally had to get the diamond pulverized. And then it followed, which to me, I couldn't do that.
Pulverized diamond.
Yeah.
Well, they would have just needed the teeniest amount.
Yes. But still, I don't know. To me, it's almost like disrespecting a stone or inflicting. It's a violent act. You have to literally, I don't like doing that. But most of them now, I think Helios has immersion. So the immersion method is way easier. You don't need to do anything. You just immerse it in water, distilled water in a glass container. You expose the container to the sunlight and the moonlight for 24 hours. And that's your mother tincture, if you like. And then it goes through the whole process. So a lot of people ask me all the time, can I make my own remedy? And I say, yeah, you can. But the thing is, like you were saying earlier, it's much easier to take the remedy because, buying a ruby, it can be expensive. And also the remedies are made from very pure gemstones. So the purest you can find. And obviously the purest, the more expensive. So, it can be costly. The other thing is that a lot of the gemstones that we find in crystal shops that we buy, etc., even the affordable ones, they are very often treated to enhance the color, for example. So they are heated. They go through different processes because when you heat up a gemstone, the color pops up.
Interesting.
And so they're not really pure. The molecular structure changes. So I wouldn't, unless they came absolutely certified 100% natural, nothing happened to them, I wouldn't trust to just buy a crystal and use it for that purpose to make a remedy.
I'm really glad you pointed that out. I didn't know that about the heating. Giovanna, do you have some case examples you want to share with us of when you've used gems in your clinic?
Yes. So rose quartz is the one that I use more frequently than others. And I've used it. And first of all, it's nice and pink, and it might lead people to think, it's the love stone and it's for girls and it's for... It's a remedy, so you can use it. I have prescribed it to guys as well as women, so it's nothing to do with that. But it is a very, very good remedy, I find, for together with carcinosin. I've used it a lot. Together with carcinosin, in cases of, I had a case of fibromyalgia, which is in my book, and it was the first case where I used rose quartz. Now, fibromyalgia, I find carcinosin very useful for this particular condition. And the reason for that is that usually, without fail, at least in my practice, I don't know if you have a different experience, but in my experience, all of the cases were about people who are incredibly given, who have lived a life of service to others, just given so much, like looking after sick people, family members, extreme sacrifice to the point where they totally neglected themselves. And that's how they became ill in the first place. I think that's my theory. They just gave too much. They didn't look after themselves. They're very much empathic. So they absorb everybody else's problems. They have no defenses almost. They have no external defenses. So that's very carcinoma. That's a very cancer miasm. And so carcinosin can help. But this particular case that I had, this lady came to me, and the usual story, she had a traumatic childhood, parents with alcohol abuse. She was the eldest of her siblings, so she had to basically raise her younger brothers and sisters. So she was very responsible from an early age. Then she got married. Her husband was kind of psychologically abusive, so she got divorced eventually. She went through a medical abortion that she didn't want to have, but the doctors advised her to do that because she was told the baby would be severely Down syndrome with lots of complications. And then eventually afterwards, she found out that it was a mistake. She had been misdiagnosed. The baby would have been absolutely fine. And that absolutely, that I can't even imagine how crushing. I can't even imagine. That was just unbelievable. And then she looked after her mother-in-law until she passed. So she was always there for other people. When I asked her, so what are your hobbies? What do you like doing with your time? She said, I really, really enjoy, I realize how lucky I am. I was like, really? Gosh, I'm grateful for what I have. And I really enjoy volunteering to help the homeless. And I thought, wow. And, and while she was telling me all this stuff, no bitterness, no self-pity, no sense of, poor me, I'm a victim. Very gentle, very calm, very lovely, just lovely person. And she was very, very religious. And she really believed in, energies, and she was into Reiki and other things. She was just different. I'd never met somebody. That was the first time. That was a few years ago. She was telling me all these things that were really heavy, and there was no anger, not even. I couldn't perceive. She was not, some people say, the Natmuir types, they go like, oh no, I've forgiven everything. I don't even think about it. And then they bring it up over and over again. But he said, and I remember that, and you can tell there is that kind of, suppressed anger, even the nitric acids, there's that thing eating up from the inside. No, there was none of that. She was genuinely amazing. And so I gave her the kerosene, but I also gave her rose quartz, a 1M, just one dose. And then when she came back for the follow-up, it was actually quite a while after, because in the meantime, she finally decided to go on holiday for the first time. And guess what she went? She actually went to Australia. She had a friend who lives in Australia, and she had tried for years to say, come over. You can just stay with me and, have a rest and have a holiday and get some sunshine, because obviously, this weather that we have in Scotland is not amazing, particularly if you have, muscle pains and joint pains and things. And she always said no, because there was always something else that she had to do for somebody else. My son needs me. No, my mother-in-law needs me. No. And this time she just dropped everything. She went, and she had the time of her life. She was nice and lovely and tan, and she was fantastic. And to me, the sunshine, I'm sure, helped. And then the sea air and everything. But the fact that she took that decision, that she realized, no, I have to do this. This is good for me. I have to do something that's good for me. So that was the remedy. I think that was the remedy.
Absolutely. It's so interesting, because we see these sorts of things in our clinics all the time where I always say, when you find the right remedy, your body's like self-preservation mechanism kicks in, where any sort of self-destructive behaviors and things, it tends to just fall away, but it happens in such a gentle way that the client won't really know, or they won't necessarily attribute it to the remedy. But it's just interesting, they don't go on a holiday in 10 years, give a remedy, and then suddenly go on holiday. So, remedy might be complete placebo, might be coincidence, but, it's... Yeah,
there's so many coincidences.
Homeopathy has a lot of coincidences. Amazing. Oh, that's such a great story, Giovanna. I love it. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience about the gemstones? And if obviously this is something that you wouldn't really, as a home prescriber, you wouldn't really use it, but your homeopath might prescribe it for you. How can the homeopaths learn more about this? And or is it something that you would say to a home user to use themselves?
This is a tricky one because, I mean, I'm not against self-prescribing, for acutes and things. I don't think, I mean, my experience is that gemstones are for chronics, not for acutes.
Yeah.
And for deep chronics at that. The other thing is that there isn't yet enough literature on gemstone remedies for us to consider. Maybe they can be used for acutes, but we just don't know because we haven't really used them so much. It's amazing, actually, while I was studying the subject, to see how actually crystals and gemstones have been used in medicine for thousands of years. I mean, think about Ayurvedic medicine. In India, they just eat them, literally. You know what I mean? Or they place them on the parts of the body, and they've been using them for thousands of years, and we haven't. And homeopathy is very late compared to other forms of medicine. I mean, the first proving, like I said, was 1970 something when Sankaran did the diamond proving. And then after that, Jeremy Sher did quite a few in the 90s, but there isn't an awful lot. So we're just starting now, I think, coming to terms with these amazing things. And so I don't know. So I would, at this stage, I don't think we can actually kind of self-prescribe.
No, that's fine. These podcasts, I always put them out there for the general public, but the information in it is more to tantalize them sort of and show them what tools we have as homeopaths to be able to help them. And since I've been doing these podcasts, so many of my clients have come up to me and said, I heard this homeopath talk about this remedy. Do you think that might be something that's useful for me? So if nothing else, I hope that our listeners will listen to this and might identify with some of what you said and maybe contact their own homeopath and say, this lady Giovanna was talking about the gemstone remedies, and I really resonate with that. Is that maybe something that you would consider for my case? Or, so if nothing else.
And follow your intuition. Yeah, because a lot of people have, they tell me they feel better when they have a certain crystal close to them. And when they say that, I'm like, okay. So I recently had a new patient, and she's a descendant of Native American tribe. She's a half Hopi. And she was telling me, among other things, that she loves turquoise. It calms her down and it makes her feel better. And so I didn't really know much about turquoise, but I looked it up, and it has this thing about purifier. One of the characteristics is it's a purifying stone. And she has an awful lot of multiple chemical sensitivities. And I thought, And so, I said, okay, I'm going to give you this. So I gave her different remedies, but I'm also giving you a little turquoise remedy, 30C, and see how you get on with that. Sometimes try. There's if you have a homeopath, with you, and you have a bit of guidance, but also, follow your instinct.
I'll often do that. I'll give my client a prescription, and then I'll say, and this is a free remedy I'm giving you because I want you to test it out for me. I want you to be my guinea pig. Just try this one out and let me know how you go, just in return for some feedback. It might not do anything, but it might. But there's so many remedies out there, and unless we actually use them and get feedback from our clients, we're not going to know how they might be able to help others as well. So I hope there's homeopaths that listen to this and get interested in using some more of the gemstone remedies.
Yeah, so that's what it's for. And if you are that way inclined and you're healthy and you're just curious, like Misha Norland said to us, just try it. You want to do a little proving for yourself. That's what I did. I just took a 1M 3 days in a row of black opal, for example, because I didn't find anybody to give it to. And off I went. And then I just wrote down, and I had the wildest dreams ever. And I wrote them down. I wrote everything down, and I put that in the book because they were about that remedy. And I didn't even know what that remedy entailed, what kind of symptoms, what kind of affinities it had. But the dreams that I had were amazing. And so that can also be a little, it's a curiosity. It can you can maybe discover something about yourself if the remedy resonates with you on some level. Yeah. And if not, you'll just have some very entertaining dreams.
Exactly. Oh, Giovanna, it was lovely to chat with you. Could you just run our listeners again? Is your book geared towards homeopaths or the general public?
The general public, really, I just try to make it really accessible because, like I said, you can read Peter Tominello, and I do recommend it. It's amazing and it's very comprehensive. It's a huge book, but it's not a light reading. That's what I mean. And so if you're just interested in crystals, but you don't know a lot about homeopathy, this is a very good introduction.
Wonderful.
It's really easy. It's not a massive book. It's actually very, very small, and but it gives you a nice taster.
Well, actually, I think before we started recording, you were saying about the new Materia Medica book with Colin Griffiths.
Yes, Colin Griffiths has 2 volumes, and he called it New Materia Medica because a lot of the remedies in there are relatively new, and there are quite a lot of gemstone remedies in there as well.
Well, that's really cool because literally this week I've completed his ancestral trauma book that he has on CHE. Oh my gosh, that was mind-blowing. And he was talking there about, I think it was emerald that he was saying is used in the ancestral lines for males. And ayahuasca for the female ancestral line. And oh my goodness, it's just opened up a whole nother can of worms. I honestly feel like I have ADHD because there's so much in homeopathy. I feel if I had, 10 lifetimes, I couldn't learn it all, but I'm trying my best.
I know you're right. Yeah, I followed that webinar as well. And I remember when you mentioned emerald.
So good.
Yes. Really, really good.
Well, just quickly tell us, you said the book is available on Amazon, and your website for people who want to get in touch?
Yeah, my website is homeopathyheal.co.uk.
Excellent. And it was lovely to chat with you again, and I hope we can speak again soon.
Yeah, it was really lovely to see you again.
Yeah, it was so nice. So, it's like catching up with an old friend. Thank you so much. Chat soon.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
The Homeopathy Hangout podcast is produced by Eugenie Kruger Homeopathy. For more information, visit eugeniekruger.com. The information presented in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not replace advice from your medical practitioner. Please read our full disclaimer in the show notes. Thank you for listening.